Chapter 32. War Part 1. Bethany had cut down the 5th vampire and 4th enemy warrior with her katana when her back collided with someone. She glanced back and saw it was Sebastian. She and her brother decided to not shift as they fought better in their human form as they were used to it, and with this they have an easier time helping those who did shift, which is mostly everyone.
Hey sis, you okay?
Sebastian yelled over the noise as he shot down another vampire who got too close to Ramona. Ramona yipped in gratitude before she snapped another enemy werewolf's head.
I love that woman.
Sebastian mumbled with a smile. Sebastian! Bethany yelled as she threw her dagger at another enemy werewolf. Focus!
Right.
Sebastian said and punched a vampire's face. An enemy werewolf pounced on them from their blind spot, but before he can latch his teeth and claws at them, he was shot right between the eyes. Bethany and Sebastian dodged the body as it crashed down at the space between them.
How can you guys chit-chat during a war?
They turned to their savior, who turned out to be Joseph, who raised one of his brow. Bethany threw her dagger at the vampire creeping behind Joseph, and it lodged on the vampire's shoulder. The vampire cried out, and Joseph turned around and shot her between the eyes. The vampire turned into stone and crumbled into dust. Penelope's charms worked wonders. Like you're one to complain, Bethany mocked.
And who do you think I got that from?
Joseph sneered.
Guilty as charged.
Sebastian piped up.
Watch out.
Someone cried out. The 3 of them took cover as a ball of fiery fire was sent their way.
You guys alright?
Ryu came running to them and said. He stretched out his hand to help Joseph up.
Yeah, thanks for the warning.
Sebastian said as he helped Bethany up.
Anelia saw the damage you guys had created and opted to kill you 3 first. Hence the ball of fire from Alistair.
Ryu said before he threw his charmed dagger at a vampire. The dagger went through the vampire's heart before it flew back to Ryu's hand. Nice dagger, Bethany commented.
Thanks. My sister charmed it.
Ryu grinned. Then, from afar, a loud howl was heard and another wave of werewolves appeared. But they looked different. They were dirtier and more roughed up.
Shit.
Joseph growled out when he saw what they were. Rogues, Bethany growled out. A lot of them, Bethany stated as she watched as rogues charging at them endlessly.
Shit, there's too many of them, and we're only a bunch compared to them.
Sebastian cursed, then he looked at them gravely.
We're heavily outnumbered.
Ryu looked at the oncoming rogues and the undefeated vampires and enemy werewolves, and his eyes hardened.
Bethany.
Bethany turned just in time to catch the dagger she was complimenting just now with wide eyes. What?
You better not lose them after this, or else my sister will have my head.
Ryu said as he took off his jacket. Joseph looked at Ryu incredulously.
What are you doing? You'll see.
Ryu said with a grin as he helped Joseph put on his jacket onto his torn shirt from a previous fight with an enemy werewolf.
Hold on to that for me in the meantime.
Ryu whispered and kissed Joseph square on the lips. He pulled back with a grin as he took in Joseph's dazed eyes. Joseph blinked back into consciousness when he saw Ryu started back up.
You'll see why I named Ryu. Back up.
Ryu grinned, his eyes glowing emerald green as he took in the 3 cousins' confused look.
And don't get blown away.
Clouds started surrounding him, and the wind picked up as the cloud increased in width and height. The 3 of them had to latch their weapons onto the ground to not get blown away by the harsh wind. Their enemy was not as lucky. Just then, they heard a roar, and a Japanese dragon flew out from the self-made tornado. The 3 of them looked in awe as the dragon, no, Ryu, flew in circle above them. The rest of them looked in horror at the dragon flying above them and took cover when he flew too close. Bethany saw Anelia looking at Ryu in anger as she turned her glowing red eye at Alistair, sending him a command. Alistair seemed hesitant, brows furrowed like he recognized who the dragon was. But then, Anelia's eye narrowed and Alistair stiffened, face turned blank as he lifted his hand at the dragon. Ryu saw this and turned all his attention at Alistair as he puffed his chest. Just when Alistair released a ball of fire, Ryu released a blast of water at the fire, causing steam to appear. When the ball of fire disappeared, Ryu puffed his chest again and released his own ball of fire at Anelia. Anelia jumped away just in time when she saw the ball of fire appeared through the steam, but the enemy werewolves and vampires that were around her did not have a good ending. Howls and screeches were heard when they were burned alive. The allies of the Red Wolf Pack cheered and howled as Ryu huffed out smoke from his nose like a warning. Did you know he could do that? Bethany asked as she turned to Joseph, who was looking at Ryu in awe and love-filled eyes. Bethany smacked him upside the head. Dude, focus.
I know who's getting laid after this.
Sebastian said with a smirk. Joseph blushed. Then it was Sebastian's turn to get smacked upside the head.
Ow, what?
He turned and saw Harry looking at him with judging eyes.
No one's getting laid until they're at least 20.
Sebastian huffed.
Chill, you unprotective daddy bear. I'm just joking. Although, I think Joseph's actually down with that idea.
With that, Sebastian ran away, leaving a fuming Harry and a tomato Joseph. Bethany sighed and shook her head. Joseph cleared his throat.
To answer your question, Bethany, no, I do not know. He did say he's from a royal vampire family in the east.
Bethany hummed.
Well, see you. Vampires to kill and wolves to hunt.
With that, Joseph teleported away. Harry sighed.
That kid is going to be the death of me.
Bethany chuckled and patted Harry's shoulder before he shifted back and snapped another vampire's head off his shoulder. Bethany sheathed her katana and flipped Ryu's daggers in her hand. Let's see what these baby can do. She smirked and charged straight into the middle of the war. Bethany threw one of the dagger at a vampire hard and it went straight through her heart. She then dodged an incoming swipe with another vampire's nail. Bethany swiped her leg at the vampire's feet and ran the other dagger through his heart, the vampire turning into dust. Just then, she was pounced on by an enemy werewolf, causing her to drop the dagger. Bethany pushed the wolf's shoulder to prevent herself getting mauled. She looked sideways, and the previous dagger she flung was coming back to her. She punched the wolf in the eye. The wolf whimpered as Bethany stood up. She caught the dagger and stabbed it into the unsuspecting wolf's eye. The wolf howled and clawed at Bethany's arm. Bethany hissed in pain and twisted the dagger into the eye. Slowly, the wolf stopped struggling and went motionless. Bethany huffed and pulled out the dagger. She checked her wound, and indeed, her wound was already healing itself, just like Sebastian told her last time. She huffed in amusement. Thanks, Grandma. Bethany wiped the bloody dagger on the wolf's fur and raised her hand and caught the other dagger just in time. She looked at the daggers in wonder. I love these dagger. Bethany looked up at the crowd and grinned. She took a running boost and jumped right into the fight. The war had been going on for hours, and both sides are getting more and more tired. Bethany could see Anelia getting tired from using her ability, sweat dripping down her face as more and more rogues appear, and she knew her hold on Alistair is straining, as Alistair was fighting her control on him. When she once again saw Anelia winced when Alistair shook his head, Bethany grabbed Lysiani. Look at Anelia. Instead of looking at Anelia, he looked straight at Bethany.
I know, I saw. She's losing her control on Alistair.
Bethany nodded. Now is the best time to knock him out. Alistair is causing the most problem to us right now. If she lost her control over him, we can turn the tide. Lysiani nodded. Bethany looked around for Penelope, and when she saw her, she turned back to Lysiani. You think of a plan to sneak to Alistair. I'll get you the antidote. Lysiani smirked.
Already on it.
Then he looked up, Bethany following his gaze to Ryu's menacing form. Bethany looked back at him with a grin. You can try to get his attention. Lysiani scoffed.
I'll always get attention whether I like it or not.
Bethany barked out a laugh and fought her way towards where Penelope was bringing down enemies without moving. Madam Penelope. Penelope sent a wolf flying before turning to Bethany. Yes, my dear. Bethany huffed, out of breath when she reached Penelope, blood soak her clothes, both mixture of hers and the enemy's. The antidote. Do you still have it? Yes. Penelope sent a blast of energy at a nearby vampire. Why? We're bringing Alistair back. Penelope smirked and reached into her pocket, pulling out a vial of blue liquid. Make sure he drank all. Anelia had quite a hold on him, Penelope said before tossing the vial to Bethany. We'll do it, madam. Thanks. Bethany grabbed onto the vial and yelled, Lysiani! Lysiani looked at her. Bethany waved the vial she had in her hands. Lysiani nodded, and his eyes turned electric blue as the skies slightly darkened, thunder roaring in the distance. Ryu, who was blasting at another enemy with water, was shocked when a lightning struck down in front of him. He looked down to find the person who held that ability just in time to see him waved, and pointed at Bethany, who held the vial in hand, then at Alistair. Knowing what he had to do, Ryu swooped down. Bethany was too far away to throw the vial, and Lysiani noticed it. He yelled,
Adriana.
Adriana, who cut another rogue down, heard her brother called for her and looked up. She saw him pointed at Bethany, then at Ryu, then at Alistair, and got the memo. Adriana turned to Bethany and shouted, Just throw! As she readied herself. Bethany nodded and threw the vial as hard as she could. Adriana's eyes turned pale blue as she flexed her hand. The wind picked up and supported the vial straight into Lysiani's open hand.
Got it.
He yelled and jumped just as Ryu reached him. He grabbed onto his horn and pulled himself up and held tight as Ryu flew up, up, up. Make sure he drinks all of it, Bethany yelled, and Lysiani saluted. Ryu blasted a few more enemies with both fire and water before he got above Alistair.
Thanks for the ride,
Lysiani said as he jumped down. He landed behind Alistair and grabbed onto the back of Alistair's neck. Alistair shrugged him off and turned around with a cannon of water. Lysiani countered it with his lightning and sent a low-voltage one at his leg. Alistair went down on one knee when the lightning hit its target. Lysiani quickly used his enhanced speed to reach Alistair, but by then, Anelia noticed someone was fighting Alistair and turned her attention to them. But she was shot on the shoulder. Lysiani glanced and saw Sebastian saluted at him before he shot down a few more enemies. Lysiani smirked and pulled the cork off the vial with his teeth and forced the antidote down Alistair's throat. Lysiani stepped back as Alistair coughed from being forced to drink something. When Alistair stopped coughing, he looked up at Lysiani. Alistair furrowed his brows and looked around him.
What?
Then he tilted sideways. Lysiani speeded forward to catch him before he fell off the hill. Alistair looked at Lysiani with unfocused eyes.
Lysiani? What are you doing here? Where am I?
Lysiani smiled.
Sleep, cousin. You've overworked yourself. All will be explained when you wake up.
With that, Alistair blacked out. Lysiani scanned the crowd for Joseph. When he spotted him, he sent a small lightning towards him. Joseph yelped when he was shocked. He looked up the hill and saw Lysiani with Alistair in his arms. Joseph's eyes turned indigo as Lysiani and Alistair disappeared and appeared inside the palace's infirmary. Quinn squeaked when they appeared. Her helpers pointed their surgical tools at them.
Relax, it's me.
Lysiani said. The helpers put down the tools when they saw it was Lysiani and went to tend the injured. Then Quinn saw who's in Lysiani's arms. You released him from Anelia's hold? She asked, as she went to Lysiani's side to check on Alistair.
Yes, but he overworked himself and fainted.
Lysiani said as he carried Alistair towards an empty bed. After he made sure Alistair won't hold off the bed, he turned to Quinn.
Tell him the truth when he wake up. If he doesn't believe you, tell me it's me who told you to tell him.
With that, Lysiani jumped out of the window. Quinn sighed at Lysiani's recklessness. She proceeded to check Alistair for any injury. When there wasn't any, she went to check on the others.
Your greatest weapon's been nullified. You have nothing left.
Grayson yelled when he saw Alistair disappeared along with Lysiani. King Eadric laughed.
You think he's my greatest weapon? Fool. With Alistair gone, I could finally release my true secret weapon.
Anelia raised her arms and the ground shook. What the hell? An earthquake! Bethany yelled. Sebastian looked up and paled.
No, look.
Bethany looked up and she, too, paled. The malfunction hybrids. There was about 100 of them from where they lined up beside Anelia. Who knows how many are there behind her?
You're all in the losing side.
King Eadric yelled. Then an arrow lodged onto King Eadric's shoulder. King Eadric growled and looked at where the arrow flew from. From a hill further away, a figure stepped out. She had Asian feature and her eyes were glowing green. Adriana's face brightened when she saw the figure. Mina! She exclaimed. Then she turned to Bethany and the rest with joyful eyes. It's the royal vampire queen from the east, Ryu's sister. To prove her point, the arrow was pulled out by itself and flew back into Mina's hand. Then howls were heard from behind Mina, and a white and black wolves walked out beside Mina. Their figures towered beside Mina. Grayson looked at the wolves in awe.
It's the king and queen from the White Wolf Pack and Black Wolf Pack.